number 498. We are calling for justice for all victims of police violence. Mic check, mic check.
Mic check.
Mic check.
Mic check. So thank you guys for tuning in. This is West Wednesday 498, and tonight we have two very special guests. My sister Megan, my brother Talfani, and we just got a lot to unpack, and so I will ask you guys to just stand by while we play a short video that we play every week. One of the first officers involved in my brother's brutal homicide. Mic check.
Mic check.
Can't stop. Won't stop. Till killer cops are in cell blocks. Can't stop.
The following newly released video portrays an incident of assault and violence at the hands of police. Viewer discretion is advised.
I suggest you back the fuck up.
No, why you
This is Baltimore City Police Officer Jorge Bernardez Ruiz. In a newly released video shot in 2016, Ruiz is seen with his knee on the back of an unknown man with a gun pointed at the man's head. His message was a clear one: concerned onlookers, adhere to my dictates or else. Here, we can hear Ruiz saying to Baltimore residents,
I suggest you back the fuck up.
It is documented that Baltimore police officer Jorge Bernardez Ruiz is a repeat violent offender, even without access to all complaints against Ruiz, undisclosed by BPD Internal Affairs records. 6 cases involving Ruiz are known. This video will briefly highlight 6 total cases beginning in July of 2013. Case 1, Abdul Salam, July 1st, 2013. Here, Salam is seen victoriously smiling in celebration after the jury found Ruiz and 2 other cops liable for brutality against him. However, because the trial was civil, not criminal, Ruiz was not fired and he did not go to jail.
Police profiled me. They followed me in the back of my house, harassing me. Police proceeded to violently and hostilely approach my van with me and my son in it. As I announced, this was my home, guns drawn. Once they reached my vehicle, they violently pulled me out, ramshacked my vehicle with my 3-year-old son strapped in his car seat, threw me against the gate, slammed me repeatedly.
Picked me up by my feet, and while I'm upside down, they proceeded to drop me on my head, hog tie me, and immediately when I fell on my head, Ruiz, in a wrestling type of action, and kind of hit his knee against my neck.
I was arrested. I had no idea what I was being arrested for. My son is scarred to this day. He remembers the incident as it happened yesterday. When he talks about it, he always refers to daddy being on the floor with police yesterday.
Case 2, Darrell Harris, profiled, as seen in this video, July 17th, 2013.
Yeah, I said, what's wrong with it? Improper way with it. There's no such thing as an improper way.
You gonna tell me my job, bro?
I know the law.
Are you gonna tell me the law?
I know the law.
You gonna tell me the law?
I know the law. What's the problem? You giving me a ticket? You need my license registration?
Yeah, let me get that.
To profile, y'all use the seatbelt as a reason. Profile.
Hold on, sir. Do me a favor, take out your keys.
Yeah, you can record. For what? Nah. I don't feel safe right now. Do you want me to step out the car? Do you want me to step out the car? I'll step out the car. Call the police, man. What do you call a supervisor? I'm about to do shit. This is getting uploaded to the internet right now. Yeah?
And we are 2 law-abiding citizens that we are getting targeted, and I don't know why.
Just 24 hours later, Bernardez Ruiz played a leading role in the police killing of unarmed Tyrone West. Case number 3, the murder of Tyrone West, July 18th, 2013.
My brother Tyrone West was brutally murdered on July the 18th, 2013.
In both of these cases, when you look at the pleadings and the harsh language of these officers that have been quoted to me by reliable witnesses, the N-word.
And Killer Ruiz and Killer Chapman and the rest of those 11 or 15 killers, including David Lewis, took something from my family that they could never give us again. And that was my brother Tyrone West, one unarmed man who was brutally murdered, beat to death in broad daylight.
Mic check, mic check.
Mic check.
Mic check. Thank you, brother Ben, for that. Yeah, and every time we play that video, it breaks my heart. Week after week, it's just really sad and devastating to know that for 498 weeks, 3,486 days, we still have no accountability whatsoever for my brother Tyrone West. And it's real devastating and heartbreaking, but it's not going to stop me. But it's just sad, literally, when I see that there was a victim literally 24 hours before my brother was murdered. Like, it's insane, you know. And then this week, you know, I just found out, well, actually on Friday, got the sad news that our state's attorney is not going to prosecute the security guard that murdered Nicholas Lee. Like, that is very devastating. Like, Nicholas Lee was murdered. He had his wife. They were in a supermarket out Reisterstown, literally where the mayor's mother worked at. Like, his mother could have been harmed. Like, any shopper could have been harmed. Whether it's somebody, the mayor's mother or whoever, an innocent bystander could have been harmed in the way. And to me, an innocent person was murdered. Literally, they say a confrontation ensued, allegedly, when Mr. Lee allegedly supposed to walk in the market with no shirt on, and the security guard pretty much was saying, you can't come in without a shirt. He followed them, stalked them into, I guess, the meat department, and that's where an alleged fight. But I don't believe it, because what they do with the media, they try to make it seem, they'll make stuff fit to make it seem like, you know, it was out of their hands, it was out of control. But at the end of the day, if you see that Mr. Lee, a Muslim guy, by the way, was unarmed, you see that. So if he don't have a shirt on, he's truly unarmed. And my thing is, why haven't they showed us the video? And if I missed it, if you guys know about it, please let me know, because I have not seen any video footage. And for them to just like sweep that under the rug and say, you know what, we're not charging anyone, you know, and everything is just being blamed on Marilyn Mosey. Like, and that's what happens after administration after administration, because the same thing that she did to my family, she blamed everything on Greg Bernstein. We need to stop pointing fingers and hold folks accountable. Murder is murder at the end of the day, and it's ridiculous. But then you see, and allegedly he supposed had a pack of meat in his hand and all his foolishness, took a punch at him and all his foolishness, is supposed to reach for his gun. So they make stuff fit. The same thing that they said, oh, my brother supposed to got all his exuberant strength and pretty much try to reach for one of their guns and try to poke somebody, and not foolishness when they are murdering our men, women, and children. It's disgusting. But the part that bothers me, and my heart goes out to both families. My heart goes out to Nicholas Lee family as well as Kevin Torres family. I hope I'm saying his name correctly. But he was also, Mr. Kevin was also murdered by a security guard. But in this case, it was by a black security guard. Mr. Kevin, pretty much a soccer coach, you know, just going to celebrate a soccer game, you know, with his family. And, you know, the security guard, you know, and him allegedly supposed to have words or whatever. And they always say a fight ensued. And then they alleged that Mr. Kevin had got a brick. And that's when they'd already tased him. Then they wind up murdering him, like literally gunning him down. Like, horrible. you know. But my whole thing is immediately this black security guard, like not immediately, but I'm saying months, thank goodness Kevin's family was down there. And I don't want any family to have to go through the trauma of actually going to revisit a site where their loved one was murdered, you know, but sometimes you got to do what you got to do just to get accountability. But they were brave, they were bold, and definitely got all my respect and love and support. And they went down there night after night, you know, and amazingly, the black security guard was fired, and then he was charged, and he's arrested and waiting for trial. But my whole thing is, it's just sad the way policing is done. They arrest who they want to arrest, and then, you know, even though they claim that, you know, the security guards are not sworn, then we know that they're not sworn then as the same thing as a officer. But at the same time, they are supposed to be there to serve and protect, you know, and they're not serving us. They're not serving us. They're protecting property. Meanwhile, we're being murdered. And it's just said nobody family deserves that. So tonight, no further ado, I have two special guests that I'm honored, two strong guests. One, my first one will be my sister Megan. And I remember meeting Megan Kennedy when we were at a protest. Like, this queen is bold, bodacious, everything, like wrapped up into one. And I'm so honored that she just got elected to be on the police brutality you know, board or whatever, accountability board. And I'm so excited. But I just love the way she fight. Like, she fought effortlessly to bring Keith Davis Jr. home, you know, Team Keith. Thank God Keith made it home to his family, and now Keith and Kelly are living. Finally, he's able to raise his children and get his life back. But you can't get back something that people just take away from you maliciously. But thank God he's still able to be with his family, and I'm so excited and happy for them. But nevertheless, when I met our queen real quick, I'll never forget, we were at an O'Malley rally, a die-in, and I pretty much got harassed going in the door, me and Boom. That's why I put the Boom picture tonight up on to share with you guys when I was talking about our special guest. But me and Boom literally had went in. They actually had to take us to a metal detector. We went in, and literally they actually, after they took me to the metal detector, a security guard pulled me to the side and actually patted me down, took the, you know, the metal detector, all this stuff. You can't bring no water bottles in, you can't bring no protest signs, all this. I'm like, I don't have anything. What are you talking about? And it was like, well, we know you as a known protester. We just want to make sure. I'm like, there's some foolishness. And they did the same to Boom. But the thing I love, and I literally fell in love with Megan's actions, like, immediately once the rally and things began, I'll never forget this bold, beautiful queen running around and getting a back massage and literally pulled out her killer cop sign that's in cardboard, big as day, like the size of an 8x10, but it's a cardboard, and she pulled literally out her back. And I'm like, how in the hell did she get in with that? Had a bottle of water, everything, and they were massaging her back, and she was going hard, like, you know, we want accountability. Like, she goes hard for accountability, and I couldn't have thought of no one better to be actually put on that board, because we need it, because we're tired of like the paperwork, the foolishness. So I'm going to bring our sister Queen on. And also tonight I was supposed to bring Miss Ellen on, but we were having technical difficulties, and her son literally was murdered, Jesse Saray. And pretty much after I talk with Megan, I'm going to play a video of him being murdered, and his mom, his beautiful queen mother, is fighting like hell, you know, for accountability. So definitely will keep you guys posted with that. But meanwhile, I want to bring on my sister Queen Megan. Mic check.
Mic check. First, I want to say thank you for inviting me, Tawanda. I know this is has always been a very painful thing, event that was put on you. I was smiling earlier because I was remembering that exact event at O'Malley's presidential announcement in Red Hill, and I had seen you actually get like wanded and patted down when you were going into the space, and I had recognized you from during the uprising, but we hadn't met yet.
Right.
And so I was like, all right, I'm going to go through there, and I just walked right through. They just waved me through, and some of the officers that tried to stop me, some of the white shirts, I think have since been, I think they were wrapped up in that overtime fraud, I believe. But what a couple of things I wanted to say. One is about Keith Davis Jr. He was shot by Baltimore police in June of 2015. So right when the uprising had happened, they killed Freddie. The uprising had happened. It was quieting down a bit, and they chased and shot Keith in a case of mistaken identity. And he survived. And an officer I've talked to since then who was working in the Internal Affairs Department at the time, he's no longer a police officer. He said that everybody was waiting and hoping that Keith would die, because then there would be the story would be closed, essentially. But Keith survived, and then they framed him for murder, and he was tried 4 times for murder based on a gun that they say they found on top of a fridge that he was lying next to, unconscious and bleeding from them shooting him. It was 4 trials, and then they were going to go for a 5th trial with Marilyn Mosby as the state's attorney, but then she lost the election. And a new state's attorney, Ivan Bates, who has since declined prosecuting the officer or the people who killed Donnell Rochester too.
Yes.
Ivan Bates chose to drop the charges against Keith, and so Keith is now a free man. It's an example of like multiple things being true at the same time that sort of conflict with each other. That has freed Keith, and he's not prosecuting the officers who killed Donnell, and he's, both things are true. So that's a struggle that I have doing this work. And the other thing I wanted to mention, and you mentioned it, is the Police Accountability Board here in Baltimore City. It's brand new. We recently just got sworn in. There's 17 people on it. It's a 4-year term, basically. It's a 4-year stint. And we haven't met as a whole group yet. That's coming soon. But the thing to stress, he probably won't prosecute officers that shot Keith. Probably not. One thing I want to stress is that the board will review all police misconduct complaints for Baltimore Police, Hopkins Police once it's developed, Morgan State. There's a couple more. So it's not just limited to BPD. Having said that, there is a giant backlog that we have to get to. And so now there's probably close to 400 complaints that have been filed since for the past 7 months. So we have to get through that backlog before we can then review additional complaints. But they have to be filed. So if they're not filed, we can't review it. So that's an important thing, is that they can come at us from many different avenues, but they definitely have to be documented and submitted in some way. I don't know what that's going to look like. I don't know how much power in practice we'll be able to have. Again, we haven't even met all at once yet. But I'm seeing this as a way to stay in the work, show up like I used to, physically. Like I'm getting older. My body won't let me, so I had to rethink how to confront the work that needs to be done. What kind of powers does the group have? That is yet to be detailed. There's a number of different things that are in place that I need to get more familiar with. There is the Accountability Charging Committee, and I believe that they have more teeth than the PAB, the Police Accountability Board. That is 5 members, and they will meet regularly with law enforcement officials. And I believe the board sort of supports that. But there are opportunities for other people to join that group. You just have to apply. And that's 5 members, one whom is the board chair, the Police Accountability Board chair. 2 are people that the board has nominated from within the board. And there's 2 other spots that can be filled by whoever applies. So frankly, are you allowed to make, if an officer has many complaints against them, how so our board meetings are public. That's as much as I know. I know that we're going to be I'm a data analyst by trade, so I'm going to be sort of doing my own data collection. But also there are staff in the Office of Equity and Civil Rights that are going to be assigned specifically as Police Accountability Board liaisons. I think we have 1 full-time person who's going to be sort of project managing all of that. So, again, the meetings will be public, and yeah, there'll be public comment. And so anything that's said in that is public domain or whatever. But yeah, so I've sort of, as I've hit, my mid-40s, I can't move like I used to. I can't stay up late. I can't overnight and all that stuff. So I had to think about how I can adapt and evolve and stay in the work and continue, confronting white supremacy in all of its insidious forms, which is difficult. It's everywhere. It's like how does a fish know it's breathing water? It's just everywhere in us, around us, and it infiltrates everything. So that's where I'm at. What can the board do when it's convinced that case brutality was very wrong? Yeah, again, the legalities of what we can do, because it's a state, it's a law that this has to exist now. So I am currently I'm a director of Baltimore Court Watch. And I was a member of Team Keith and just a person who, Judah, I think we went to college together, actually. Anyways, and now I've just been, I used to go to West Wednesdays a lot. And yeah, sorry, I'm getting distracted by trying to answer questions and keep talking. So I'm going to stop talking.
Oh no, but thank you. I just want to thank you. And then I also with the white supremacy piece, and I just when you used to always come to West Wednesday, and you would just be bold enough and brave enough to be you know what, doing Thanksgiving or a holiday, just confront your whiteness, talk and that meant a lot to me. Like, and I just really appreciate everything you're doing, and just love you to pieces. And don't worry about the questions. We have someone that we check in that always read the questions and stuff. We'll be going to that shortly. But before we go to that, I want to bring my brother. I want to introduce you to my brother, Calphone. I'm horrible with names. I'm sorry. I want to introduce you to my brother, my warrior brother right now. And yeah, he's very knowledgeable of police brutality and everything. Hey brother, how you doing?
Mike check. How you doing, sister?
How you doing, my brother? Yeah, so
Mike
the
check.
floor is all yours. And you can just, like, if you could share to my sister Megan who you are, what you do, that would be fabulous.
Sure.
Mike check.
So, Mike check. So, Megan, it's a pleasure to meet you. And it's really an opportune time to meet you because I am a trained ethnographer, and I have been interested in locating my research around accountability boards of policing. And Baltimore obviously is a place that I've been trying to access, but I've constantly got the runaround, the bureaucratic runaround. But let me start off by saying this. I just want to acknowledge the work that Tawanda and your colleagues do. And whether I'm watching you guys online or just monitoring the social media stuff, there's an old saying that mediocre teachers tell, good teachers explain, better teachers demonstrate, but amazing teachers inspire. And I want you to know that the work that you all are doing, and that means the coalition that you all are doing, including you, Tawanda, is inspirational. And I mean that from the heart. But as for my sister Megan, I just want to be clear, you know, we go through different life phases, and it's important not to make apologies about, you know, how the body changes. In fact, by putting your body on the line, you accept that it's going to be so much wear and tear that, you know, someone our age will feel like we're, you know, almost a century old, because it takes a lot of energy, a lot of MTP, a lot of, you know, strength and fortitude to do this, but it does have a wear and tear. Just to let you all know, currently I'm an assistant professor of African American Studies, and I focus on policing and race. I'm a former police officer out of the state of Georgia. I worked at both the state level, I worked at the city level, and I worked at the county level. Not because I had some love affair with law enforcement, but I grew up observing the crimes of law enforcement and was trying to understand something both about law enforcement, but also something about Blackness, about whiteness, about race, about privilege, and about disadvantage. You know, on January the 7th, when this young brother, Tyree Nichols, was on his way home after getting off of work at FedEx and taking a look at, you know, the sunset, I just want to be clear with you all that there's no evidence that he committed a crime. Let's talk about white supremacy, but let's also share some secrets that Black folk know all too well. We fear all police. We don't distinguish between good ones and bad ones. It's the system. We don't distinguish between white and Black because we know from experience. By the way, Megan, we have put our bodies on the line, and we witnessed it both directly and vicariously, where it doesn't matter who's behind the badge in most cases. If in fact you're Black, you are a dystopian threat to society. And what often happens, and what we all know, in fact, you talk to most Black people, that tell you, sometimes I distrust the Black ones more than I distrust the white ones, right? Because the Black ones got to show up for the white ones. Here's what white supremacy tells us. It tells us that there's ultimately a devaluation of Black life, and there's a surplus valuation of white life. And what this means is that if we're socialized in this air that we breathe, as you so aptly put, Megan, what this means is that all of us are potentially indoctrinated by this false ideology. And Black officers, in most cases, and sadly so, demonstrate that this indoctrination is real and foolproof. It is a hermeneutic seal around our minds, because they go ham in the community when it comes to us. And some of us might sit back and wonder, how could they do that to their own people? Or they put shame on us. But this young brother, the reason why he was in such a state of fright, because he'd seen officers like that before. Now, I'm going to tell you, they said it was only 5 officers, and then they added on here and there. It was clearly more than a dozen officers in that field of view. This brother seen that Scorpion unit even when they were Red Dogs in Atlanta. So let's unpack some things about this. You know, I've been interviewed, and I've been fortunate enough to be interviewed across the country nationally by the media. And one of the things that I leave them with is, what did the chief know? Chief Saralyn C.J. Davis, what did she know? And when did she know it? Every police chief that inherits a police department knows what their assets are, and they get to prioritize their strategic plan. So at first, my question was, it is no way that she got into this agency less than 2 years and didn't know that there was a rogue unit operated in an extrajudicial manner. And then with a little bit of investigation, we discovered that she actually created the unit. Right? Street crime organization for restoring peace in our neighborhoods. She created it after one being a victim of crime in Memphis. Her car was stolen, her firearm was stolen, her house was burglarized, but she imported it from Atlanta. In Atlanta, it was called Red Dogs. And they killed a 92-year-old African-American woman. Went into the wrong house, a no-knock warrant, and went into the wrong house, and this woman was alarmed, and her alarm offended them, so they shot her. So what am I saying here before I begin to, before I finish narrating this incident, this fateful incident for this young brother? We think that just because the commissioner is black or the deputy chief is black, right? White supremacy means that they sometimes can be our worst enemies. That chief knew it. She knew it when it happened. She knew it before it happened, and she played Mother Goose on the media. She was covering her own ass. She knew that she had set this rogue unit into action. She was engaged in what we call a Faustian bargain. She was under the pressure of getting the homicide rates down. In 2020, the homicide rates in Memphis, Tennessee was 332. In 2021, it was 346. It was going up. She was under pressure, just like the mayor was under pressure. They both said, look, you think this unit can do it? She said, yeah, I know this unit can do it. I used to be the commander of the one in Atlanta. We got in a little bit of trouble, but I think they can do it. And then she played this distance game, a little bit more social distancing than this pandemic got us doing. She pretended like she didn't know they existed. She offered up her motherly role to these young, to this national community, when all along she was the architect. Now, I'm not totally putting this on her. These young brothers had a predisposition to harm black people. When they pulled this brother over, it wasn't for reckless driving. In fact, one of the officers was arrested for reckless driving. The audacity here. But he was shocked. He was shocked that he would be targeted because he tried, he heard the talk. And, the talk is not just about what you do when you encounter a police officer, it's what you do in an anticipatory fashion to avoid law enforcement. And so he was shocked. What did I do? He demonstrated both deference and respect. He was compliant. When Freddie Gray ran, Freddie Gray also seen these type of folk before. And he knew that standing still and being compliant was no safe guarantee of one's survival. They want to know why we run. The Dr. Samuel Cartwright would say that black people have a condition known as drapatomania. We run like hell when we're in trouble. No, we run like hell because you bring trouble to us.
Yes.
So Freddie Gray ran, and this brother ran. Now, I want to go back to the chief a bit. Tuan, I hope I'm not taking up too much time. But
no, take as much time as you need. You feeding us facts.
They choreographed this so well as to prevent an urban uprising similar to what we saw in Baltimore. The white officer says he demonstrates a clear mindset, mens rea. He says in the video, I hope they stop his ass. But you didn't include him with the initial 5? Why? Because it was a white face. And they think, and this is an insult, because they think that our complaints against police brutality is just between whites and blacks. No, as I said at the outset, it is against abusive, violent, killer cops.
Yes.
So how insulting when the chief rolled out her defense or her narrative or explained it this way, and then sort of covering for, if you will, this white officer whose name is Preston Hemphill. So this was all set up. This was all part of the project. They cut off their body cameras, and they didn't know that there was a sky cop, which was circulated all around the black community, by the way, as if crime doesn't happen in the suburbs or in the little enclaves in Memphis, but it just happens in our community. It happens in our community because our communities are not food deserts. That's a natural condition. They're food apartheid. That means that policies and practices are designed to produce ghettos out of black, vibrant, thriving communities. This is the history of America. And I'm not being childish nor Gambino, but this is America. And it happened that $10 million system would catch them in action. Now, this young brother was a Crohn's survivor. If you know anything about that, it's a very painful and debilitating condition. He weighed no more than 145 pounds. Yeah, 6'3". A father of a 4-year-old and a son of 3 other siblings, son of 4. What was so powerful, and I imagine, Tawanda, when your brother was being assaulted by that sort of legion of officers between Morgan State and Baltimore, the city of Baltimore, the mother would say, she told her husband, she says, man, I got a sudden and acute pain. He said, baby, it's probably gas. This is his Ravon Wells. Mr. Wells said, it's probably gas. She said, no, it's not gas. Trust me, I've had gas before. He says, well, is it that time? She said, no, it's not cramps. This is something different. And I got to be honest with you, sometimes it draws the envy out of me. The fact that women are so in tune with their sons and daughters, brothers and sisters, fathers and mothers, grandfathers and grandmothers, aunts and uncles, nieces and nephews and cousins, that they're so in tune that they can feel it in their very body. Yes. The assault. You couldn't help but cry when you heard the sister say that. And the husband said, baby, just go sit down. But she knew intrinsically that less than 80 yards, her son was being beaten to death. She knew that when it came to her door, and did you notice, did anybody catch it? They tried to cover it up. They said, well, was he on drugs or what was going on and all this? And she was like, no, you obviously don't know my son like I know. There was baking up their narrative as they did, after they beat this young man. On January the 7th, we saw a public lynching. And some of us were too damn tired because these lynchings don't stop. Police officers have killed 1,196 people in this last year. Typically, the raw number is more white men that are being killed by police, but always a disproportionate number of black and brown bodies. So, as a former police officer, I have to tell you all that my position has changed from being a reformer to being that much more closer to an abolitionist. Yes, I want to tell you about the governor of Maryland. See, black folk or skin folk ain't always your kinfolk. Westmore got on the news, and when he was asked about this situation, he said, oh, well, we're going to put $132 million in retraining the police. Come on, man, as if all the training that the police have is somehow working. We don't have evidence that the training is working, but you keep putting money in it as if that's a progressive solution. Training doesn't work. We got to break the system down and rebuild it. I'm not saying we don't need police in our community. Yes, Baltimore for the last decade has seen crime, homicides exceed more than 300. we need at least, if the police are not having a deterrent effect, we need the investigatory power to help us solve and close out some of these cases. But we need to reduce the footprint of policing in our community until we can until we're in a position where we don't have to hold law enforcement accountable. Until they are so morally righteous and so ethical that they hold themselves accountable. So what's happening here? Let me close up because I can go on and on forever because I'm hurt and I'm pissed. You see, my brothers in blue and my sisters in blue say, oh, he's one of us. No, you forgot that the rest of the world sees me as a black man first. And I can't lose sight of that. I'm hurt. Let me tell you what I've been doing from an intellectual standpoint. Race is a powerful organizing principle in our society. To be white in this society is to be conferred with a surplus of value. You have a massive amount of capital, and your capital is fungible. You are considered scrupulous. In fact, you are the model citizen. And this utopia that we call America has been made for you and by you. Conversely, to be black in this society means that you have a deficit of credibility. You lack moral capital. You are not to be believed. You are considered a criminal lying in wait. You are a dystopian threat. And we license police officers, the thin blue line as we call it, to be that not only last ground of defense, as if somehow they're under attack, they're besieged with threats. No, they work on containment. And they help to see that we remain antithetical in all ways possible to that of the paragon of whiteness. We, according to police, belong at the bottom of the social order. This is race in America. And what it does is it colonizes the gaze. I'm going to bring this to a close. I just want to keep it going, but I'm going to bring it to a close. So if you see race as the way it is socialized in America, then every time you encounter a black person, they are guilty until proven innocent. They don't have the reckless drive. Just ambush them. This young brother thought he was being ambushed. There was no lights and sirens on the cars. They just boxed him in. I would have got out of my car and ran. You don't have to worry about ambushing us or getting us rather for probable cause. Our blackness is criminal enough. It is a threat to utopian society enough. It is a dystopian threat. And so I call this the Rid effect. Now I want to point, what would the young folks say? I want to point out game, right? Game, recognized game. Let me tell you as I close out here, what's interesting about this. I want you to think about Tamir Rice. When Timothy Loman, the 26-year-old police officer who had already changed agency, you see, they commit their troubles, get caught, and just go on to a new agency. But when he confronted Tamir Rice, the 12-year-old kid, not 13, not 14, not 16, when he confronted him after a bad tactical approach, he described him and he said, man, this looked like a kid that was more than 185 pounds, 6 feet tall. He didn't even call him a kid. He called him a grown man. Right. And this grown man was what he called him, he called them, he had his word for him, and an active shooter. Right? How do you go from seeing a kid in a children's park, half your size, half your stature, as a grown man of 185 pounds? Rid effect. I'm going to explain in just a second. Let's look at Mike Brown. Every police officer worth they sought know that the killing of Mike Brown was unjustifiable. But we can't break rank because we don't know when we're going to be in trouble one day, right? No, the officer, Darren Wilson, that shot Mike Brown should have been held. He should have been charged with capital punishment. It is no way that we're trained under those circumstances to do what he did. But how did he describe Mike Brown? He said, I felt like I was holding the hands of Hulk Hogan. What happened here? How did this man who is a police officer of the same stature and height as Mike Brown, felt so small. Well, it's called RID effect, racially induced diminutive effect. What this means is that something psychological happens when police officers, whether white or black, are confronted with black and brown bodies in the street. They go through some kind of dysmorphic downsizing. They imagine themselves to be so small, and they imagine the black person, no matter how small they are, to be larger than life. And this, my friends, justify the compensatory violent strategies to either neutralize or incapacitate permanently the threat. And because we all have been socialized according to the logics of race in America, they can do it in broad daylight, and they would imagine that a jury would understand us. Let me close out here. They didn't expect to get in trouble from killing this young man, Tyre Nichols. Their rationale was that everybody would understand it because this is America. This is America. Don't get you slipping up, right? And so I am not going to go on about the RID effect. It's something that I write about, and I can share. In fact, I shared an article about this with Tawanda, and maybe she can share it with the group, the coalition. But we need to ban chokeholds. We need to end no-knock warrants. We need to teach the history of race and policing in the police academy. We need to teach the history of policing and sexual exploitation, because there's a lot of police officers that take advantage of their office, if you know what I mean, against vulnerable women. We need to have greater transparency. Officers can't move from agency to agency to agency to agency just because there is a need for certified officers. In fact, we need to decertify them at the national level. We need a president to stop giving us this, warm, hopeful rhetoric. During his State of the Union address, he spoke for about 4 minutes and 20 seconds about what happened to Tyre Nichols, but he never gave any definitive and hardcore, I need you to do this, this, and this, right? We need to end residency, the lack of residency requirements. We need officers to come from the cities they serve in, right? We need to change the rules around use of force. Not simply the escalation because you think it has to be necessary in order to use it, right? And there's so many more things that I can talk about that we need to do. But let me tell you the first thing we need to do, or what we need to couple with this intervention, is the broad interventions that I call for. And that is, we need to teach people how to read or how to discern the RID effect. In every police report, those that are high profile killings and those that are not, you're going to read in there something of the sort that said, man, this person had superhuman strength, like they called Tyre Nichols. They said he was like Superman. He must have been on something, right? He was a superhuman, right? There's always going to be this description of us being larger than life and them feeling so small and vulnerable. I close with this. He was 145 pounds. Combined, you had more than 1,000 pounds kicking this man to the head, spraying him with pepper spray to the eyes and nose. As one of the officers said, haymakers, hitting them with haymakers, after haymaker, after haymaker, after haymaker, taking an expandable truncheon, an aspeton is what we call it, and striking him to the backs and arms, fracturing the bones in his arms and that in his back. This was the public lynching, but public lynchings will continue unless we can grow the ranks of those like you all who are out on the front lines, willing to sort of pick up this fight. It's just so much more that I just want to say to you all, but I simply will, end with Margaret Mead, because I know, Sister Tawanda, when you're out there and it's raining or it's snowing and the numbers are not there, I just want you to know, Margaret Mead, an anthropologist, once said, never doubt a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens. These are the citizens that change the world, and indeed, it's only been a small group to make this change, and I hope you continue to make change.
Thank you so much. I just wanted to say, like, you just touched on everything. And even from the start of what you were saying about Tyree Nichols, literally about his mother feeling the pain, I swear to God, and I've been telling it from day one, when my brother was assassinated, I felt pain in the left side of my neck, my body. I thought I was having some type of medical issue,
a stroke,
to the point it lasted 15 minutes. Nobody believed me. Like, I felt all the pain in my back, neck, all that, but nobody believed me. And then when you talk about the red effect, that's exactly what they did in my brother case. You had my brother, they even lied in the police report, in the independent, what I call foolishness, the independent review. They said that my brother was way bigger than what he was, but they always make it seem like, and even with the medical examiner's report, it makes them seem like they have this exuberant strength, to as though they literally are like under, having drugs and whatnot, and then they pretty much die from a heart attack. That's exactly what they did with my brother. Not the fact that he had 2 canisters of pepper spray or whatever type, or whatever they were spraying into my brother's eyes and mouth. They sprayed so much of that it got in Chapman's mouth and nose. That's the only reason why the paramedics was called there doing my brother public lynching. They didn't give a damn about Tyrone West's eyes. They cared about Chapman's eyes, and they left him there dying after he had haymaker after haymaker, and then a 340-pound man, David Keller Lewis from Morgan, to finish him off, to get on his neck while he was in a hog-tie position, dying, gasping for air like a fish. And everything you said, oh my God, that's why I'm in tears. I'm in pain. I'm reliving this nightmare, and I've been reliving it ever since it happened. Every time someone gets bruised, but all the things that literally happened, I didn't even know that Tyree, to the first time ever, the touch, you said it tonight, I didn't even know his mom felt pain. That's what I felt like. People thought it was that pain was so real. That's what made me notify when I couldn't reach him. That's what made me start calling my brothers. Calling my brother immediately. And when he didn't answer, after that, I'm calling my family like, something is wrong with Tyrone. Oh my God. I'm thinking car crash, car wreck, but something is wrong with my brother. Nobody believed me. It was to the point I was even, before that, I was dating a cop. I actually called this cop, my ex, and I said, did you, and I'm not even knowing what terminology I'm using, none of that. Never heard him say this in my presence in the whole 5 years we were dating. But I said, God is asking me to ask you, did you get a signal 13? And he told me, yeah, about 10 or 15 minutes ago. I was like, oh my God, that's my brother. And his response to me was, oh my God, you are crazy. That doesn't mean that nothing happened to your brother. That means an officer is down. I said, I don't give a damn what it means. I'm asking you. And even he called me the next day to say, I'm sorry. I don't know if I would have got there on time, but he remembered me asking him this. Like, you can't make this up. So everything that you said registered on all levels. Like, oh my God, like everything you said, like everything. So I know our line is jumping. Like, we got so many comments and questions. So I just want to take a few minutes to see if anybody is in queue to be able to read our comments or questions. So if you and Megan can hold tight, I want to check and see if anybody's available to read our questions. Mic check.
Mic check.
Hey, Marcellus, I'm sorry. Hey, Marcellus.
No, it's all right. All right. We do have a lot of comments. Hillary says mic check. Bill says big welcome to tonight's guests, Kalfani and Megan. Adina says mic check. Elaine Simmons says watching from Washington. Smiley says shame that there's no charge over Nicholas Lee's death. Adina says Ivan Bates is a coward. They're controlling the narrative, and no one knows whether or not it's even a true story. Nakume Boja Brock says mic check. Elaine says thanks for calling out Jesse Suray's name. I am Jesse Suray's foster mom. Adina says disgusting, waiting for a man to die. He probably won't prosecute the officers that shot Keith either. Smiley says 400 complaints filed. Wow. Ben says, what kind of powers does the group have, Megan? Are you allowed to make public if an officer has many complaints against them? And how transparent can you be? Ben says, clap emoji, and that's amazing. Bill says, what can the board do when it's convinced that a case of brutality was very wrong? Judah says, belated mic check. I miss what organization Megan is with. Dina says, it definitely permeates society like a cancer, white supremacy. Judah says, thank you. I believe somebody responded with the organization. Elaine says, the killer of my foster son, Jesse Surrey, Officer Jeff Nelson, has been on paid administrative house arrest since he was arrested and charged for second-degree murder and first-degree assault, fall 2020. Jesse was murdered on May 31st, 2019. Today, once again, the trial has been continued. Elaine says, thanks, Megan. Thanks, Queen Tawanda, for bringing forward police accountability. Judah says, I thought we knew each other, Megan, but I couldn't remember your name from our Twitter interactions. I appreciate you and all that you do. I'd love to reconnect on social media or via email. Judah, or his email is in the comments. Smiley says, black officers too are indoctrinated to go ham on their own people in the worst way. Elaine says this. Ben says one of the officers took photos of Nichols and texted them around to friends. Bill says, yes, Carolyn Davis knew. The 92-year-old woman that the Red Dog unit killed under Davis' command in Atlanta was Katherine Johnston.
That's right.
Hillary says the case of Tyree Nichols so much mirrors what happened to Tyrone West. It has been almost 10 years. The Gun Trace Task Force has been far-reaching in Baltimore. Our state's attorney or attorney general needs to be inspired and brave enough to reinvestigate and hold the officers accountable. Angela says, replying to Hillary, exactly. Adina says they begin creating a false narrative immediately, and all of them participate in the cover-up, even the white shirts. Bruce says, good evening, all. Adina says it's not a training issue. Smiley says those officers were part of an elite force, so more training definitely isn't the issue. Jason says, good evening, all. Exactly. Bill says, that's right. Darren Wilson should have been charged, prosecuted, and incarcerated for life. Adina says, this is fascinating. Elaine says, truth, my son's murderer killed 3 young men. He was a rogue officer. Elaine says, hi to Jason. Adina says, they did that to Tyrone, sending T hugs. Same verbiage was stated in Tyrone's case. That's why it affects T so harshly. Bill says, yes, we must grow the ranks of our movement against police terror in particular, and also against racism in general. Elena says, thanks, I needed to hear that. Tyrone West, prayer, heart, prayer, emoji, with 2 hearts. Elaine says, truth. And I believe Ben posted a link called How to Understand and Correct Police Perceptions of Race by Kalfani Toure, Caleb Preto Hodge, and Saneda Sharif. Mic check.
Mic check.
Mic check.
Thank you so much for that. And before I get to like I was saying, listen, didn't ask anybody want to say anything, but oh my God, like California got me in tears. Like I love them so much, and Megan, and like Hillary said, and Dina, or one of them in the comments said, this hit me on so many levels. Like y'all have no idea what I've been struggling with. Like hearing the exact same thing that happened to my brother, and literally we talking about 17 animals that beat my brother in broad like daylight to death. It just registers on all avenues. But real quick, to our queen, Miss Ellen, she's actually in court, And like and it said, like the killers that murdered her foster child is literally on home arrest. Like, are you freaking kidding me? Who gets to murder someone and then get to be placed on home arrest, house arrest? That is disgusting. But I want to take 1 minute to play the horrible video of the execution of her son Jesse. And if you need to take a break, get away from this screen, this is your moment to do that, because I know that it's heart-wrenching and people can't actually take it. So I'm gonna get Ben to play the video, and just keep, if you pray, I'm begging you guys to keep our sister Missy Lane in prayer. And I pray that these animals just be like, oh my God, I just pray that they get what's coming to them. All the animals that murdered any of our loved ones. And to this day, my sister Angela has not gotten an autopsy report, and it's going on a whole almost 2 years. Her brother was murdered, Timothy Flemings, and they demand answers, and she still got nothing. It's sad, it's sickening, it's very disgusting. But again, if you say a prayer for my sister Queen, Miss Ellen. And if not, please, I beg you, send positive thoughts through the airway, and let's wrap our arms around our queen. Her son didn't deserve it, so I'm just asking you, viewer discretion is advised. If you have, problems with seeing this, please, this is your moment to go away from your phone. The video is maybe like 1 minute and 30 seconds, so please take this minute to walk away from your phone to say your prayer or thoughts or whatever, or if you can take it and stomach it, we're ready to play that awful video. Mic check.
Mic check.
Hi, Abby.
I told you to stop kicking stuff, stop throwing stuff, right? Okay, so now you gotta put your hands behind your back, okay? You gotta put your hands behind your back. Huh? Okay. You're under arrest for disorderly conduct, okay? Put it down. You just stop pushing me, boy. Hey, listen to me. Keep your hands off of me. What the hell are you doing? That's not right. I'm gonna talk. Fuck this stupid ass stuff. Stop resisting, dude. Just go down. Stop me doing anything wrong. Bullshit, you're not. Oh my God. Oh my God. Holy shit, you just shot him! I'm so tired. Dude!
Thank you so much, Brother Ben, for playing that. That's just horrible. And again, that your family is going through that. And I pray that these animals be prosecuted to that you guys get accountability. I'm just praying for all the families. I'm even Tyre Nichols. I would be remiss if I didn't talk about Tyre Moorhead, treated right here in Baltimore. And I'm not expecting our state's attorney to deny me a Marilyn Mosley when she got so much publicity and that she did absolutely nothing. And I feel like, yeah, he freed Keith, but literally you free one night, and then the next night you tell Donna, Mom, you're not going to do anything. And that was an 18-year-old innocent baby gunned down for no, should have been finishing, graduating high school and everything, murdered. You took a month, and for animals just to keep walking away. So that's 2 strikes for me. Donnell Rochester and Nicholas Lee, 2 strikes for me. It's sad, but again, just want to check in with homicide because we ran over time. But again, this was well needed, and I definitely needed my brother, nothing but facts and knowledge and wisdom. Like, I needed that. Like, even though, but oh my God, like, I really needed to hear everything that was said tonight. And see first if she wanted to say anything, and then I'm going to check in with Uncle Bill quickly about the commissioner or whatever, but about in the case of Tyree. So mic check.
Mic check.
And would you like to say anything?
I'm sorry, Tawana, did you ask me?
I was asking Megan first before I bring you on. I want to ask Megan,
All right.
does she want to say anything? Because she's been just quiet for a moment. Megan, do you have anything else you want to say, share, anything?
I think, you know, it's gonna be a long road, and we can cultivate a world where everybody feels safe if we wanted to. And some of us do, and some of us don't. So it's, yeah, we're fighting for a world that we won't see, but I think that is sort of irrelevant, because we're in this world now. So I just want to send my love to you, Tawana, and to every loved one and family member of people stolen from you at the hands of people with badges and guns who we essentially pay, right? Like, they're funded by our, and we're paying them to kill people. It just is like sick. So that's it. Thank you again for having me.
No, thank you, and I definitely appreciate everything you're doing and have done. Thank you. I want to thank my brother California. Anything that he wanted to share or add before I bring Uncle Bill in, and we kind of wrap up.
Sure. I just want to thank you again for this opportunity. I joined Megan in sending my prayers to all of us who have suffered. You know, I'm tired of seeing sisters and brothers' tears serve to fertilize the soils of cemetery sites for our lost sons and daughters. But I do want to say this, because I just got to continue to be a thorn in the side of the system. David Fowler, the medical examiner, who co-signed on all of these incidents and just kind of covered things up, right? There is a strong indication, I can't say what I really feel, but there's a strong indication that he was complicit in the cover up.
Right.
And this is a case, I think, Tawanda, I think you guys have standing. I don't know what the statute of limitations are, but I believe you and the other folk here in the state of Maryland, and there's a bunch of who, you guys potentially have a class action lawsuit. It's because I don't think he has qualified immunity, right? So I'm not trying to broach a new topic. I'm just trying to depart and sort of leave something here for us to think about. I think he should be sued. But thank you again, sister, and thank you to the coalition for having me. I'll catch you guys later.
Thank you so much. And I want to add to you, it is a statute, and the same disgusting part, when this first happened, and when I went in my pocketbook dollars and had my brother's body exhumed, when they came back 154 days later saying my strength in a bad heart and just straight died, I'm like, no, hell no. And I went in my pocketbook. I said, I want to sue the hell out the medical exam stuff. They kept saying, oh, well, hold up your situation first, knowing that this situation was going to drag out for a while with my brother's case. No good day for me. Like, I'm just out of money that I took from my children. So that really sucked me. And I'm very, very heartbroken. So I'm glad you asked that, but that is very disgusting. It shouldn't be. I should be able to go and sue the hell out the medical exams office for the trauma that they took me through week after week. They've been lied on, put my life on the line, standing in front of that cruddy, telling people about David Fowler being foul, getting death threats, and nobody takes me serious until the stuff breaks national news. It's very disgusting. Yes, so yeah, thank you, my brother, and thank you for your time. And I know you gotta go, definitely. Thank you. So we go to the sad lesson, kind of wrap up. What do you want to add to the conversation?
I just on David Fowler, I want to point out that he studied forensic medicine in South Africa for years during the apartheid regime, and some of his racist attitude probably came from there. But the point I wanted to talk about for a few moments this evening is about the police chief from Memphis, Sarah Lynn Davis. I wanted to agree with Dr. Toure about some of the points he made. When the mayor of Memphis was looking to hire her as the police chief, he found two qualities that he liked: that she was tough and that she had a reputation, I should say posturing because it wasn't real, a reputation as being for police reform. She even spoke to Congress about the need for police reform. And in the modern period, ever since this spate of high-profile police killings, any police chief that wants to be a police chief in a major city has to pretend they want to make things better. They have to make that pretense. It reminds me from my years of teaching in big city school systems, the CEOs have a life expectancy in office as the CEO of 2.5 years. Because what happens is a new CEO comes in, they're talking about making education better for working class children, especially black and brown children. And after a couple of years, the parents realize it was a lie, things don't get better, and they get rid of him. It's like musical chairs, and they go from district to district around the country. And with the police chiefs, it's very similar. So Davis, the police chief from Memphis, came out trying to smell like a rose after she fired those cops from the unit, the Scorpion unit, after they killed Tyre Nichols. But as Dr. Toure wisely pointed out, she used to be in the Atlanta Police Department, and she was in charge of a unit which was exactly the same, in essence. It was called the Red Dog Unit. And the Red Dog Unit in 2006, among many instances of brutality, murdered this 92-year-old woman, Catherine Johnston. The Red Dog Unit ended because of all the notoriety for brutality in 2011, but Atlanta replaced it later with the Apex Unit and then the Titan Unit, which were very much the same, all like the Gun Trace Task Force here in Baltimore. Now, the Scorpion Unit, the current one, what they just disbanded, which the police chief there had started, of the people that they have detained, 90% have been African American, even though Memphis is only 65% African American. A tremendous disparity, a racist disparity in who they go after. So I think that the upshot of some of this is that the guilt is not just with the individual racist, violent cops, but their activity is encouraged and protected by the whole system, by police chiefs, by the legal system, by the National Attorney General, like Eric Holden, who under Obama went out to Ferguson and cried some crocodile tears about Mike Brown having been killed, but refused to prosecute. And they maintain a system where less than 2% of the killer cops get prosecuted. And that's why, as Dr. Toure pointed out, those cops felt free to murder in the most vicious possible way Tyre McNichols, assuming that there will be no consequences. And this happens to be one of those rare moments where there were some consequences. So when we say it's a systemic problem, that means that the system of capitalism, which is at the root of all this, has to go. And that's the point I wanted to make this evening, what we can learn from the history of the police chief in Memphis. So that's it. Wonderful program tonight. Thank you so much to the guests and to you, Tawanda. Very powerful as always.
thank you, Uncle Bill, for that. So I'm going with our brother Brian to see if he's online to see about our homicide list here. And told from Uncle Bill tonight that we don't have any names that's currently updated in the Washington. Like I said, in another week or two, we will be coming back probably with a long list. Just praying for all the victims that we don't know about today that's not announced. Just praying and just want to check in. And before we check in, again, I just want to thank my phone. I want to thank my sister Megan. Just thank you guys so much. And I just did share questions, comments. I love you guys. And thank you, Megan. Like when she was sworn in, and what really touched my heart was she wore my brother's name up. That is pure dedication and loyalty. So I just want to thank you, my queen, for that. And I remember, if I'm not mistaken, when Mayor Brandon Scott was sworn in. Yes, but I've yet to have a conversation with him since he's been in office about accountability. I had the opportunity to talk and speak with him moving forward about Tyrone West. So again, I just want to thank each and every last one of you guys. Want to take 1 minute just to say a prayer. If you pray in 1 minute, you know, these are loving, these are victims, families that are suffering. This was people that was murdered, and just hearing about so many teenagers being murdered in my city is so heartbreaking, devastating. My family members, the day before yesterday, literally children coming home from the Owens Mills, and I was like, that's how my Monday was. Like literally so much going on, and you still have to pay your dues in society. You still a productive citizen and go through all this trauma that we are daily stuck to. Like we have no, I can't turn this off. I can't turn off the worry for my children. Let's just take 1 minute right now, guys, and we'll come back at 8:21. And these are family members. I mean, these are victims. These victims belong to someone family, but someone right now is physically, mentally dying because they're literally. We just had the 2-year commemoration of my cousin Tavon being executed going on. It's too much. It's so sad. Not even 2 years of that. I'm sorry. There's so much going on. His birthday was the 5th. Timothy Fleming's birthday was the 5th. And we have to say heavenly instead of having our loved one. And speaking of heavenly birthday, Sandra Bland's birthday as well. Trayvon Martin's birthday was this week on the 5th as well. So my families that should have their loved ones down here celebrating a birthday instead of birthday. So let's just take 1 minute. It's 8:21. We're going to come back at 8:22. Mike. Thank you guys. I know a minute is not long enough for your time and for everything, and I'm going to hand it over to our brother Brian or whoever has the check.
Mic check.
Mic check.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. This week we had a very short list for Baltimore as well. This past weekend was not called ceasefire anymore, but I know that was that work to be continuing, and it seems to have done some good this week. I was unfortunately out of town, so I couldn't attend any of those events. But so this week we had, we lost 2 more people to violence, and I'd ask you to raise their names up as I say them. Maya Morton, 23.
Maya Morton,
23.
Andreas Moreno Jr., 16.
Andrea Moreno Jr., 16.
Thank you.
Thank you. I want to thank each and every last one of you guys for tuning in. And again, it's not the West Coalition. This is Tawanda Jones. I'm definitely one praying. I'm praying for pretty much everybody around the world, because guess what? Homicides don't just happen. It's not a Baltimore thing, because if it was, me and my time ago to go to a safe spot, whereas though that didn't exist, but unfortunately all over. And yeah, so thank you guys for your time tonight. But again, 498. Next week will be the last West Wednesday door activity for the 500th West Wednesday, and I encourage and urge everyone. I need you guys to show up. Please show up. Like 500 weeks, like my brother California said, it doesn't matter if there's a whole lot of us out there or not, because I'd rather roll with 4 quarters than 100 pennies. So it doesn't matter if your heart's not in it. Fine. We all need to show up, because this is a big problem. This study happening. It's like I told you here about somebody being murdered that makes national news, and you will see and casket chasers go follow them. You will see Reverend Al, the Crump. You will see them during the funeral. You will see them on the news talking. We're better than that, and we're more than hashtags and body bags. So again, just 2 weeks prepared to come join us. Even if you can't stay that long, we're going to start up at one point. Typical West Wednesday, except for we're going to be in a motorcade, right? Going to these different locations. We'll speak out at the last stop or whatever. So please prepare to come, show your site. That's all I'm asking you. Just to show face for a few minutes or what have you. Because at the end of the day, to you, it's too late. I don't want it to happen to you. That's why I don't care how many years this nightmare and bringing guests on, crying, reliving my own pain of losing my brother, us to keep losing our loved ones. Like, it's sad, it's devastating, it's not. And so killer cops are in cell blocks. So thank you guys for tuning in to the video. Unfortunately, one of the first murderers, Ruiz, who's currently still working after brutalizing, murdering the many victims. He's still working. And again, I want to give a big shout out for this accountability board. Is not watered down, but I just really feel like with all these boards and reform up there, I feel like they just want our minds to believe that things is going to change just to keep us calm. I'm glad they got Megan in the mix. So thank you guys for everything, and brother California and Megan back on here again. Definitely need to bring them into praying again for my sister, Miss Ellen, and her foster son, Lisa Ray. So live to love, love to live. I love you all. We'll see you next week, but I want to see the 500th West Wednesday on February the 22nd. Mic check.
Mic check.
And Mr. West begging for his life, and Mr. Salam begging for his child to be excluded and comforted from what was taking place. Not for himself, but for his 3-year-old child.
Case number 4, Adina Britt and family, September 10th, 2015. My name is Adina Britt, and I wanted to submit a 30-second testimonial that Jorge Omar Bernardez Ruiz is one of the 11 terrorists that came into my house performing a home invasion in September 2015, terrorizing my entire family and even holding my 12-year-old son at gunpoint. He needs to be stopped. Case number 5. Unidentified arrestee, assaulted in 2016.
I suggest you back the fuck up. No, why you
Again, this video did not surface until the summer of 2020. Case 6, Thomas McCullough, May 2016 and February 2017.
I heard my front door coming off the hinges like it exploded.
Thomas McCullough says it happened twice. In May 2016 and February 2017, Baltimore City Police burst through his green front door and raided his Pimlico home.
They said, police. They come up, shotguns, guns.
He says officers ransacked the place, looking for drugs, money, and weapons. He took pictures of the damage he says they left behind.
Tell us where the drugs are, the scales, the guns, and the large amounts of money.
Nothing was found. Now he's suing police, claiming officers, including a former member of the Gun Trace Task Force, frightened him, his wife, and father-in-law when the officers conducted what his suit calls an illegal search of his home. The owner of the house tells 11 News after the second raid, he had to replace the front door. McCullough and his attorney say they want Baltimore police held accountable.
There is a colossal breach of trust.
And McCullough tells us following both raids, no one was arrested or charged.
This all begs the question, when will Baltimore City State's Attorney Marilyn Mosby see the prosecution of Bernardez Ruiz as warranted?
They were the stopping officers in these so-called jump-out cars, unmarked and so forth, that stopped both the West vehicle and the Salon vehicle without probable cause. And these officers are the ones that also were joined by others, but they are the ones who initiated the stops, pulled both men out of the vehicles, and commenced the vicious activity that was thrust upon them.
And the officer Ruiz that started this attack is still working and working with promotions. He is now sergeant. But the fact that this repeat violent offender had a history leading up to my brother. There was Darrell Harris, there was James Green, Joseph Green, Abdul Salam, and my sister Adina and her family. No one family deserves to be brutally murdered or brutalized by this repeat violent offender Ruiz. It is time we take action. The time is now.
Baltimore police officer Jorge Bernardez Ruiz is a repeat violent offender. Based on these accounts, in accordance with the law, we, the West Coalition, call for him to be fired, prosecuted, and incarcerated.
We're more than hashtags and body bags. We're more than being 6 feet in the dirt and pictures and buttons on t-shirts. Our lives matter.
For the safety of our city, the prevention of further harm, and the justice for these families, we see no other option.
And again, I'll say, the time is now.